Hi, I'm B from Nectar Mechanics, and on today's video, we're going to be laser cutting a Minecraft chest. So first things first, I opened up my modeling software of choice. Now for this particular project, since it was going to be relatively simple, I chose to just use TinkerCad. TinkerCad is more of a beginner's software than one you would normally make proper products with, but for this, it worked really nicely. I initially started by creating the entire chest as like a replica, with each Minecraft pixel being a square in the software 3D space. I then proceeded to start figuring out how am I going to build this, how's this going to work, because this is going to be laser cut, which means that no matter how I do this, even if it being 3D, it needs to still be cut flat. It needs to all piece together like a 3D jigsaw. So what I decided to do to make my life a lot easier, if you look on the chest, it's got like a black frame around the side, which I believe is meant to be like a metal structural frame. I built that frame as its own one solid piece, and then from there I could make all of the pixels and the texturing of the wood and all the shapes be smaller blocks that fit within the frame. This made it so much easier than trying to remake the entire thing pixel for pixel. And I also decided I wasn't going to go for 100% game accuracy, because if I did, it was going to be a lot of shapes. And let me remind you, the total number of shapes in the finished product was still 140 individual pieces. 140! So once I figured out what I was doing with the frame and the pixels inside, I thought, since I'm not going for 100% game accuracy, I could actually do it where there's sort of strips of wood in a line formation. And what this means is that it still has that wooden handcrafted look, while also keeping it a lot simpler. I also wanted to have some sort of different texturing and shapes in it, because if you look on the actual chest, even though I'm not going for 100% accuracy, I still wanted to take elements from it. And I found that other people who had done laser cutting chests had actually done it where they'd keep it 100% flat and smooth, but have occasional details cut in. So it was a matter of just piecing it all together, doing it on all sides. It did take me, it took me quite a while, but not as long as I was expecting. Normally my projects take up to 2 weeks to complete. This entire project from start to finish was like less than 5 days. The layer of wood I'm using is 3mm. This is important to keep into account, because if your pieces are different thicknesses, then they won't connect properly. They won't mesh. It's a jigsaw, right? Now, ideally the buckle wanted to be 5mm thick, but I was either going to be 3mm thick or 6mm thick, and I decided being slightly over looked much better than being slightly under. Now, again, it's 2D. You've got to mesh them together like a jigsaw. Now, the way I managed to get the buckle to stick on is the buckle had a U cutout with a square that goes in between, which helps align them, and then there's a hole in the chest that peg goes into. And that way, even if I don't know where everything goes exactly or whatever, mathematically, it should be symmetrical. Now, obviously, I wanted this chest to open. Originally, I was thinking of using golden door hinges. Now, I did try these. I made holes in the back of the design and everything for the screws to fit into, and it all lined up. And it was too wide. I was aware it was too wide, but I didn't realize how ugly it looked, because even if it was within the space of the chest itself in the same dimensions, it was a giant slab of gold just chilling on the back. If I'd managed to get it to fit inside the chest, it probably would have been ideal, probably would have been perfect, but it didn't, and it didn't work. So bearing in mind that when you see me doing all of these designs for the holes and everything, you're aware that not everything in a project is in the final version. So I live in New Zealand. We're currently in level red, which basically means try your best to avoid people, which means my makerspace, the hive, which is ironic because I'm B, is closed in level red. But I am great friends with the people who run it and everything. And I basically sent them an email saying, "Hi, I have a laser cut and you have a laser cutter. Would you mind?" And they basically just sort of said,
"Yeah, sure, go for it. You're not allowed in, but we'll give it to you at the library door, whatever, it's fine."
So I got this laser cut, and I just want to say the hive is amazing, alright? It's just, everyone there is so helpful. They've helped teach me how to become a proper maker and everything. They've given me access to 3D printers and stuff. They've even helped me fix my 3D printer with stuff that I would never have thought to try because I'm so new to all this. So thank you so much for helping me learn all this. And like I said, all the people there are extremely awesome. If you live in the Wellington region and we're not in level red, I highly suggest you go check them out, because So good. So I got all the laser cut pieces here, and it was a lot. Like 140 individual pieces. Of course it's gonna be hard to do, but I don't think I realized just how much of this was gonna be. I had my 3D model laid out on my computer monitor next to me, and I basically tried to just piece it together, just figure out, okay, that shape is that shape, so it's probably gonna go there. So I got the frame, and I pieced that all together. Now, even though the frames all look basically the same, they're different heights, one's the clip, one's the peg, and they slot in a specific way. So I made sure I lined it up all correct or whatever. Then I started piecing the wooden pieces inside them. Now this was extremely time consuming because, like I said earlier, I made them all in strips of wood, right? To give it that sort of plank handmade effect. But they're all different lengths, they're all different measurements, yeah? What ended up happening is that I actually halfway through decided, you know what? I'm gonna make my life so much easier, and I'm gonna organize them all into lengths and everything. The next step was to glue them. Now, to glue them, I was trying to use super glue at first. And of course, I immediately got it on my hands, and it stayed with me for days. But I realized, one, I was running out of super glue, and two, it was being extremely fiddly and actually getting onto the wood pieces. So I was like, okay, well, this is my chance to use my wood glue, because I was rummaging through my storage and I found it. I was like, oh, I can use the wood glue, it's laser cut wood. It takes 12 hours to dry. And then I realized this is the wrong kind of project for that, because that's for like giant planks of wood being glued into furniture and stuff, Evan and Caitlin style. Not what I need. So I decided to use hot glue. And I'll be honest, I don't think hot glue is the perfect idea to use because it's extremely messy on small scale projects, but it worked for what I want. But before I hot glued everything, I actually made sure that I painted all of the detail pieces, because the wood, the planks in between and everything, they could just be standard whatever. I don't care if they're slightly different shades, it's fine. But the detail pieces that were like larger sections, I wanted them to be obviously distinct, so I just painted them all brown. So then I began hot gluing them, and it was just a really time-consuming process, really. It was easier to glue them in the frame than trying to glue them all separate and then slot it in, because that way I didn't need to worry about, oh, have they all squished outwards slightly? Oh, is it not gonna go exactly? Because remember, this is a laser cut thing made in CAD software, which means it's 100% mathematics. So if you're off by a millimeter, you will know. You will know. I did have a couple of errors in here and there, and I basically decided halfway through my usual solution. I can't make it look 100% clean. Weather it. Always weather your projects if you're not good at getting them pristine. I don't mind it being messy, yeah? I'm gonna just let it be. It's wood, of course it's gonna shift. The planks are all separate, so I don't mind it being uneven. That's fine, that's cool. So now the next task after I hot glued everything together was, how do I do the hinge? Now the hinge was an interesting problem because obviously I'd engineered it around these clunky giant door hinge type things. And that was a no-go, so I'm like, okay, what am I gonna do now? And normally I would overthink this, and I'd be like, okay, well, I'm gonna laser cut new pieces or whatever. And for some reason I decided I'm just gonna hack at the extra bits of wood I have and just see how it works. So I got 2 bits of wood, and I glued them into the top 2 corners of the chest, and I stuck holes through them. And then I stuck holes through the bottom of the chest, had a rod of wire, which, again, it was all bent and gnarly, but it's weathered, it's fine to be messy. And it's as simple as that, really. But because I didn't design it, I had to do stuff like cutting out sections of the back so that it actually had room to move, because the hinge would have been on the back and that wouldn't have been an issue. I had to make sure the holes lined up mostly, and no, it's not exactly perfect. But anyways, so that actually was one of the most time-consuming processes, because I'm fluid with using TinkerCad because it's dead easy, so I've just did that. That took me like 8 hours most, which is like the shorter part. Then it was the assembling and gluing. That was straightforward. Painting, I've used that. It was just, yeah, having to halfway through figure out how do I make this hinge that didn't exist before then. So a lot of the project was actually just trying to retrofit this hinge that wasn't meant to be there. But once I finished that, and everything was looking pretty nice, I was like, what's missing? What's missing? And I remembered, this is weathered, this is gonna be slightly mucky, right? So let's do a wash. And if you're not familiar, a wash is basically where you get your paint water and your muck of choice, your greens for the grass, whatever, or primarily brown for dirt. And that's what I did here. So I got my brown paint and I watered it down so that it's basically just water, but it's brown. And then you slather it all over the entire project. And then you get paper towels and you basically just take it all off. And the bits that stick or the bits that don't end up giving it this nice randomized texture. And for the wood especially, it brought out all the individual lines in the grain of the wood. I definitely think I weathered the front more than I would have liked, but using enough paper towels and scrubbing it with water, because it's just acrylic paints, it got to a stage where I was quite happy with it. And that's basically it. This was just a really fun and quick project that was exactly what I wanted. And I think with all that out of the way, it's time for the super fancy promo shots. Look at how cool that looks. Now, that's not to say that I wouldn't do a few things differently if I did this a second time. Number one, I would prefer to have actually had the hinge designed into the laser cut files. Obviously, I was expecting to use the ugly buckles, but you know what I mean. Number two, bit of a minor thing, but I think I weathered the front more than the sides of everything else, and it's not a huge takeaway, but it's definitely slightly irritating for me. Number three, I wish I'd spent more time researching what was probably the best glue for this project, because hot glue worked, but it was quite messy, there was an awful lot of cleanup, and even when I did get it cleaned up, it wasn't all straight flat edges. One final thing, I think I would have liked to have had the gap between the top part and the bottom part a bit closer, a bit more flush, because there is a gap that's fairly visible, but that's fine. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be posting really nice promo pictures and stuff all on the Instagram, so if you want to see those not just in a still frame in YouTube, then you go check that out. I'll also be posting a short of this on TikTok, so if you have friends that don't have full time for this video, just send them there. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this build. I definitely did. I'm going to be using this to store all my hair ties in now because I have too much hair. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next one. Farewell!